All right. So we are in season
which
3.
is nuts.
We are
But
real podcasters.
I
It's
know
official.
it's a three-peat. Like
Listen.
at this point, we're professionals.
Yes. And we've been enjoying it so much. I feel like season 3 is going to be even better than 2 and 1. Um, and I feel like going to be a little bit more fun. We're getting into more of the fun stuff.
Yeah. And we got a baby on board this season.
Yes. So that makes it even more fun because I'm having to this is good to help me remember everything that I went through with Elijah because it's all a blur. It just flies by to get myself prepared for number 2.
Yeah, it's coming fast and furious. And I think this is a perfect episode, this topic today, because
Yes.
it'll be the first, year, of life after you give birth for the second time, which is just even crazy to think about. But today we are talking through, so this whole season, we kind of wanted to talk about the journey of motherhood, starting from newborn and beyond, even past what you and I have already experienced. So of course we got to start from the beginning. And so that's the newborn phase all the way up to the first birthday. So that first year of motherhood is a blur, like to your point. All the years. Someone told me the days are long, but the years are short.
It's 100% true. Like, I really honestly wish I would have kept a journal throughout all of it, or at least like an audio journal or something like that, because there's so much that I don't remember that I wish I did. And I can go back through pictures and stuff. Like, we were doing that actually not too long ago. Me and Elijah were looking at pictures. He's like, that's me when I was a baby. Yeah, and he thinks it's so funny. He thinks it's so hilarious that he was a baby. But like, it just reminds me of like, wow, you were a little tiny baby and now you are 3 and running the show.
I love that. Yeah. When I was pregnant, I don't know if I had the idea when I was pregnant or when I was still in the hospital and probably still high off all them drugs.
Right.
I was like, I'm going to write a journal excerpt every day to chronicle what happened in the day and blah, 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 blah. Like, and just to, I think it was like kind of like the beginning of an idea similar to this one that you had for the podcast. I just wanted to document everything because I think I did it like maybe for the first week. Like once I did it while I was in the hospital because you basically have a free nanny service at the hospital.
Right.
It was easy to do it. And then I think I maybe did it like 2 or 3 times when I came home, and I was looking at those notes like a few months ago. And it was like, you could see the difference from when I was still in the hospital to those days when I came home. Cause once I was home, it was like the tone changed significantly.
Oh, I'm sure.
It went from being like, I'm so grateful for my baby and blah, 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 blah. Life is beautiful to like, yo, moms are superheroes. Like, I can't believe all the shit I have to do and da 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 da. Like,
I'm effing tired.
Yes, it was a lot of that. And I'm sure most of those were written through me being like seriously exhausted. But I think that first year is so special because it's when you are figuring out your baby's learning you, and you're really like settling into your own like motherhood. I think especially we've already talked about the first trimester. So those first 3 months at your home, go back and listen to season 2, episode 2 to hear more about the third or the fourth trimester. But I think that's such a special time because everything is new. Everything is fresh. Like you still are really starting in your like active journey of motherhood. And I will say in my experience, the first 3 months weren't terrible. Like they weren't what I thought they were going to be. I think I was prepared for things to be a lot worse for me specifically in terms of like recovering from giving birth, finding a routine with my baby. Obviously my situation was a little different just because we were in COVID, so I didn't have that hands-on help.
Yeah.
So, but in a way, like in retrospect, I'm actually grateful for that because I feel like I was really able to bond with Trey in a way that I think some mothers, you're able to, but I think traditionally, like you have a lot of people around you, like mom usually comes and sisters and all of that. And so there's other people that are also forming bonds with your baby at the same time, which isn't a negative. But
Right.
in my situation, I actually am happy now in hindsight that really I was able to really form a super strong bond with Trey before he was even really introduced to anybody else that could form a similar bond with him. And so I'll say, like, in my experience, that was the main thing that stood out to me in the first 3 months, for me, as far as like how I was adjusting to motherhood.
Yeah, I would say for me, part of the first 3 months is sort of a blur, like we talked about in season 2 with Ashley Starwood. I was in that postpartum depression, now that I know that's actually what it was, not just baby blues. I was in that phase, and I know I feel like I was just in a fog at that point in time. I was just trying to cope and make it through, keep my baby alive, keep myself alive. Like, I would say personally, like my C-section recovery was much better than I anticipated. And Elijah, we were very blessed, he throughout the first year, and even still now, is just an amazing kid. And the first year he was such a good sleeper. He was a good baby. Like, we didn't have colic, we didn't have anything. He barely ever cried. So that was definitely a blessing. But the first 3 months, I think on top of the postpartum depression, I had major breastfeeding complications, issues that really kind of, I think at the time kind of made me feel like I wasn't doing everything I needed to be doing, or I couldn't do what I needed to do because I couldn't feed him the way I needed to,
Yeah.
just with breastfeeding, and I ended up having to supplement. And I think that was hard for me to take. But I will say it was a good period for me to figure out and be able to tell myself, like, it's okay, you don't know everything, and you're not supposed to know everything with your first child. Um, and similar to you, I wasn't by myself. My husband was here, but I didn't have my mom here right away. She came about 2 or 3 weeks after I had Elijah, and that was by my choice, my stupid choice, because
You say that every time. I feel like there's like at
it's
least 4 episodes now where you're like, I don't know what I was thinking, or
I
that
don't
was
know what I was thinking. I was like, I can do this by myself. I want it to be me and my baby. We can bond and all that. No, ladies, if you can get the
SOS.
help,
I need help. Yes.
get the help,
Yeah.
because you're going to need it. And the beauty of it is that you can dictate how much or how little help you need. So if you have a family member, your mother, grandmother, whoever, that wants to come and help you, just let them help you with what you need help with. And then in other areas where you maybe don't want the help, don't take it. Be like, I got it. This is something I want to do myself. But it's definitely a very special period. You're getting acclimated to your baby. Baby's getting acclimated to you. You're trying to figure each other out. I will say, thankfully, we have Google. Well, it's a blessing and a curse.
Yes.
Because I know I was looking up every little thing. Like his first diaper rash, I was like, I thought diaper rash. When you hear rash, I automatically thought it was always bumps, but it's really not always. It can be a little bit of just redness.
Chafing, yeah.
And I didn't know that. So I'm like, what is this? Why is this butt all red? And then, I mean, we had we used the Boudreaux's butt cream, and that always really worked. But just all those little things that you don't realize, or like he had a clogged tear duct when he was born. And I guess that's very common for newborns. But I'm like, why is his eye always tearing up? And it would get like gunk in it. And it freaks me out, because I'm like, what is wrong with his eye? Can he not see? Is everything okay? And all it was a clogged tear duct. It was nothing serious.
Yeah, I think that is such a good point. And I think that what I've learned, and I've tried to like control it, but I think that like not worry, but that concern for your child and like something is new happening with them, or something that you think they're supposed to be doing, or think that they're supposed to be something that you think is supposed to be happening isn't, we automatically like freak out and we turn to Google. And that is something that I definitely did as well. Like I Googled everything, and my doctor, bless her, not my doctor, but Trey's pediatrician, her name is Dr. Kumar. And she was like, call me after the first appointment, which is like 3 days after you're home or whatever. She's like, call me for whatever you need, like any questions. I was calling this lady literally like every day, every other day, like leaving messages on the after hours, like on call doctor. So then when we came back for that next appointment, whichever one that is, she's like, I'm going to give you this book. And I've talked about it on a past episode. It's called Baby 411. She's like, you can still call, but before you call, check the book. She's like, stay off of Google, just check the book. And what the book is basically, it has all the milestones for, I think, newborn to, I think like maybe 1.5 or 2. It's past 1. And then it also has like specific topics like, weaning them off of breastfeeding or teething or sleep training, things like that. Because for me, I was hyper sensitive to all of the milestones that he's quote unquote supposed to hit at a certain time frame. Like I would check that book and they had like one of the pages was just all the milestones in year 1 and when you should start to see them. So every time he would like turn a new month, I would go and like check the box. And then if I couldn't check the box because he wasn't doing it yet, I would freak out. So one of the major ones that sent me like off, and I think I might have talked about this in the last episode, was the eye contact. So he would, not necessarily the eye contact, but just his eyes in general. Like his eye would just like kind of like
wander off.
Yeah. And I was just convinced, like I had done the research and I was like, he has this condition and he's going to have surgery to correct it. Like, I can't remember the name of the condition, but I just remember like really freaking out and feeling like I did something wrong, feeling like I failed my child, like all the guilt, of course, that always comes. And my sister was like, girl, his eyes just aren't, like, the muscles are just still developing. Like, it's fine. And I was like, no, he has all like, she's like, no. And then she came over and she was like, I was like, look, you see it? She's like, no, I don't see it. And it's like, you were so aware of the milestones that I think sometimes will see like little things and like force it to be a problem. But I think one of the milestones that they're supposed to hit in the 0 to 3 months that he hit like right away, the first night that Trey was born at 6:17 at night. By the time we made it into like our permanent room, like, so they move you, you know how they move you into the room where you're going to stay in for however long you're in the hospital. So I don't know, maybe 3 hours later, he was laying on his dad's chest and this man pushed up off of his chest and looked around and then like flopped back down. It was like 2 seconds.
Oh, wow.
But me and his dad were like, yo, he's not supposed to be able to do that. Like,
fresh out the womb.
Yeah, he's literally fresh out. Like, he hasn't. Yeah, I was like, okay. So like the lifting his head up and just being very, even though I'm sure he could barely see past his nose, like just being aware of his surroundings. That was kind of like the first milestone that he hit, and he hit it incredibly early.
That's awesome.
Do you remember Elijah's first like big milestone?
He definitely did the lifting of his head pretty early. It wasn't that early, but it was, I would say, within the first month, because I remember before we left the hospital, them telling us like, you need to start tummy time immediately to strengthen their necks and, help with all of that. So, he definitely started that really early, and he has always been a talker. So he started cooing. It probably was the first month, maybe the second month. But he's always been super talkative. That's why he does not stop talking now, because that is just his thing. Even when we were looking at some videos the other night when he was, I think it must have been like 2 months old, and I was having a full-on conversation with him. He just, the sweetest thing in the world. It's so sweet. But it is definitely, if you get too hung up on those milestones, you definitely will make yourself a little bit crazy. Because I know going into like the 4 to 6 month, there were, I feel like he still was hitting a lot of those milestones, but not exactly when I thought he should, or when, Google or whatever book I was looking at said that he should be hitting them. But they all, like we said before, they all grow and develop at their own
pace.
rate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I was going to say, I think in that 4 to 6 month time frame is when you really start to settle in, like as a mom. Like you're settling in the first 0 to 3 months, but you're still, like we've talked about, you're still a little crazy. Like the fourth trimester, you're basically still pregnant. Like,
oh yeah,
my doctor put it to me, like you were in a certain state, your body was in a certain state for 10 months, 40 weeks. And then in the span of however long it took you to give birth, in whatever manner you do it, you're not anymore. So your body needs time to like readjust, and it's not just the physical and chemical parts, it's like the mental, it's everything. So I think by 4 to 6 months, you're like a little closer to yourself, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. You're like out of that initial like mommy brain fog. Mommy brain never goes away, but you know what I mean? Like you're out of the like initial fog. And so now you're like, okay, I can do this. And I think like for me, it settled in like, holy shit, like this is the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like, this is
He's
my
really
life
yours. You can't give him back to anybody.
Yeah, this is my whole kid. And like I think part of that joy too is their little, like to your point, like personalities start to come out. Like I remember Trey was just very and I say this all the time, like I feel like the men in his namesakes, his dad and his grandpa, the other two Eric Simmonses, they're like, I call it like furrowing their brow, like like they're just like, they get these looks on their faces sometimes where it's like they're concentrating. And Trey did that from such a young age. Like he would like, what are you concentrating on so hard? Like you're 4 months old.
Like he contemplating life or something.
Yeah, exactly. And he still does it now. Like if he's saying something and he really means it, no, mama, no. Like but that started during that time. Has always been such a happy baby. And I'm so grateful for that. Like to your point, Trey never really cried unless he was hungry. He didn't cry when he was wet. He didn't cry when he was muddy. He didn't cry when he was tired. He really only cried when he was hungry. He was a pretty good sleeper. I won't say he was a great sleeper because we're not gonna lie, but he was a pretty good sleeper. But I think in that 4 to 6 months, like that's when there's joy in all of it. But for me, I can remember that's when I really felt like, okay, this is my baby. This is our routine. Like, this is what we do. I felt like, okay, I got this. Like, I felt like I kind of knew what I was doing. And to your point, the milestone piece was still important. I was still checking my book. I was still Googling things here and there. And I was still looking for them and like cognizant of where he was supposed to be at any given time developmentally, but it wasn't, the feelings associated with that weren't worry anymore. It was like excitement and just so much joy when I got to see and witness the milestones. And I will say too, that's probably around the time when I started to not leave him. Well, yeah, like those are like I started, because things were kind of opening up again. So I would like go to Target and leave him there with his dad. And that's a milestone, I think, for mothers. Like the first time, remember the first time you had to like leave, even like to go up the street or whatever,
right?
Leave your baby at home without, it's like,
it's a major milestone. You feel like you're leaving your arm or your leg at home or something, like you're leaving a major part of you at home. Yeah, with 4 to 6 months too is, I feel like once you get past the first 3 months, your baby is not they're not so fragile seeming.
Yes.
So I know, even especially with Elijah was a rather small baby. He wasn't super small, but he was 6 pounds. And he just felt like he was so tiny and fragile. Like he weighed almost nothing. And then he had lost a little bit of weight in the beginning and took a while for him to gain it back. So of course, I was always careful with him while he was a baby, but I was much more concerned about holding him correctly. And, their necks aren't as strong, all of that. And then once you get into 4 to 6 months, they're like, you can have a little bit
You're
more
more
fun with
durable.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know at that point for Elijah anyway, that's when he stopped relying on his pacifier and figured out his fingers, which is still something we're working on. I think it was right at about 4.5 months where I don't know what happened. He didn't want the pacifier anymore, and he sucks these two fingers right here. It's not his
Trey
thumb.
does the same thing, but he just started doing that. And I'm like, my man, we're at this point, we're adults, like you're two. Why are you putting your fingers in your mouth? That's
It's so infuriating. And we've done like everything. We've done like the nasty tasting stuff to put on his nails. He figured out how to suck that off, so he didn't care about that. We've tried taping his fingers. We've done everything short of getting one of the braces that like physically prevents them from putting it in their mouths. And he knows, because at this point now we're like Elijah fingers, and he'll take them out of his mouth, but then they slowly creep back in. But at 4 months, that's when he first started that. So I think that is part of what they say is self-soothing, as opposed to using like a pacifier or something like that, having their fingers, or like even having like a little blankie or something that is something that makes them feel more comfortable or calms them down without parent having to do that. Which I don't know if it's a specific milestone, but I do remember that happening during that time. And then he was talking even more, and he definitely started getting really interested in food. Because I have some old videos of him, like, well, we're eating something and he's just like
staring like, what is that? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
To your point about them kind of like in that first 3 months, it's like, oh, the little baby, like watch his head.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and then when they get to that 4-6 month range, that is when they're like, okay, you're a baby now. Like
Yeah.
I can, oh, hey, how are you? Like, not throw them up in the air, but like kind of like you can just play with them
They're a
more.
little more sturdy.
Yeah. And also they're more aware of what's going on. They're responding to their surroundings. They're reaching for toys. They might be rolling over. That's kind of when Trey started babbling and like blowing bubbles and stuff. And it's interesting. Oh, you brought up like the fingers and getting rid of the pacifier. Trey I couldn't figure out how to keep a pacifier in his mouth in 0 to 3 months. Like I would put it in there and then I'd have to hold it, which defeats the purpose of the pacifier if I have to orchestrate it for you.
Right.
But 4 to 6 months is when he started using a pacifier. And there were a lot of thoughts from my village about my use of a pacifier, but this is kind of my line for everything is, well, you gonna come over here and do it? Like, are you gonna offer me a solution? Because if not, ta-ta, like I don't want to hear it.
Right.
And the pacifier was helpful because I found myself, he wasn't little. Trey was 7 pounds, 11 ounces. He lost quite a bit of weight in between birth and his first appointment because my boobs just weren't boobing. They weren't doing what they're supposed to do twice.
About it.
And then it's like 4 to 6 months, my baby was a little chunky and I was in denial.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, look how chunky he is. And I was like, no, he's not. Like one of my cousins calls him Chunky Chunk or called him Chunky Chunk. Now she's like, I can't call him that anymore. But he had rolls on rolls on rolls. Like,
but that's what they're supposed to. They're supposed to look like little Michelin men. Yeah.
He was so cute. But he went from being like this little fragile thing to all of a sudden, like literally looking through photos, you can see it's like overnight. Yeah. He just got chunky. So like we're 6 months, but we're in 9-month clothes. Like that's how we were rocking.
Okay. And he liked his food. He liked his milk.
He would bang a bottle. And I want to say it's funny. I was just talking to my cousin Ashley, who was on last season. Her baby will be 7 months in a few days, and she's starting to introduce foods. And she was asking me how I did it, and I had to think back. I did not do the baby-led weaning. I actually didn't even start. The elders in my village started for me, giving him like bananas and you need to give him oatmeal. So I started with just like the oatmeal and rice, like in the box. This was something, and y'all, when y'all hear this, like DM us on Instagram, at me, whatever. I could not for the life of me figure out how to put the cereal in his milk and him be able to take it out the bottle. I called all of my like village, like, what do I do? They're like, oh, well, they should make, the special nipples for it. I couldn't find the special nipples. That
No, because I don't think they say you're really
they
not
don't
supposed to
encourage
do
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I figured out because they were like, "Oh, no, you should have the." So I found a nipple that had, like, the opening was, like, in the shape of a Y, but
Mhm.
he couldn't control it, like, he wasn't at the age where he could, like, control what was coming out, and so it would just, like, fall all down the side of his
Oh,
face,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
so then a family member was like, "Oh, we'll just stick, like, a fork, like, the fork, like, a prong, whatever you call it, of a fork in there and just widen it a little bit." That did the same thing. So I messed up so many bottles trying to get, excuse me, the cereal and stuff in there, and eventually I was like, "You know what? I'm just put it in a bowl and feed it to him out of a spoon." And so
Yeah.
that's really how we started with
Yeah.
the cereal and the oatmeal, and then one of my cousins was like, just give him food. Like, that's what she did with her kids. And that's how, they did it. So one of the first things he ever had was black eyed peas. And
Mm.
I was like, well, do I make a separate thing for him? Cause when you make black eyed peas,
Yeah, you put some
there's
seasoning
a
in
smoke,
it
yeah,
and
there's a smoked turkey wing in there. There's a little garlic, a little salt,
right.
you get it together and then you eat it and it's fire. But like for my baby, for my 6-month-old, like,
Right. He's not used to all that
yeah, and
yet.
she was like, "Nah, you can dilute it with a little water, you can put some of the formula in there, like, you can mix it with something else and, like, puree it." So that's what I did, and it was kinda like not like a soup, a little thicker than that, obviously,
Mhm.
but that boy tore him up, and that's still one of his favorite things to eat,
Mm.
and that was one of my favorite things to do and has actually developed into one of our routines now. When I first started feeding him, I was so paranoid about him choking
Mhm.
that I would sit directly in front of him. Like when we moved on to like moving into that 7 to 9 month phase where now they're like reaching for things and they can handle things with their hands, I would give him like mashed up banana or like once
Mhm.
he had teeth, I don't think he had teeth then. So I was mainly like mashed up banana or mashed up broccoli, like little things that I knew he could eat and manage on his own. I would sit directly in front of him and just
Oh,
like
yeah.
watch him.
I did the
Yeah.
same thing. Mhm.
I was so paranoid about him choking.
Of
And his
course.
dad was like, I'd be like, "Can you go do that for me? Can you go do that for me?" He's like, "Why can't you do it?" I was like, "Because Trey is eating and I have to watch him eat." Like,
Duh.
and so now every time Trey eats, he's like, "Mama, mama, sit down, mama, sit down." Like he
Wow,
wants me to
that's
sit
sweet.
directly in front of him because
Yeah.
that's like it's created this routine where we eat dinner together every
That's your
night.
bonding time.
Mhm. Yeah, I
That's
love it.
sweet. Yeah, I did the same sort of thing with Elijah with, starting food. I think it was probably around 6 months or so. Now it's so hard to remember. I think around 6 months is when they recommend starting,
Mhm.
like, the cereal and all that. So I started him. I did so much research because I can be a little bit extra about doing things naturally and wanting to have the healthiest things for.
Which is good.
Yes,
Not
it
that
is, but I drive myself crazy sometimes, but I I started with oatmeal, um, because I read so many things about rice having, like, arsenic in
arsenic and
it
stuff,
and
yeah.
all that, so I started with oatmeal. I didn't do the bottle thing because I had read so many things about it being a hazard for them and
Mhm.
all that, so I was scared about that, so I just started with oatmeal, which he ended up liking, and then
Was
I
it like
think
the baby oatmeal
yeah,
or
baby oatmeal. And now I can't remember the brand. It wasn't Gerber or anything like that. I think it was Happy something. If I find it, I'll post it when we upload this episode. But it was always really good and he always really enjoyed it. And then I think one of the first foods I actually gave him, like real food, was avocado. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. So he had like avocado, bananas, of course. Um, and then even kind of younger than I think I was supposed to. You remember those little like airy kind of little puffs that were
mhm.
like in
Oh,
like a
them was Trey's joints.
I
Like,
had
I had to keep them on me.
yes, he loved those. I have a video of him first trying to eat them, and I think he only had like two little budding teeth and nothing else
Mhm.
in there. and it was sticking to his gums, but he was mashing it up and he was asking for more and he loved it. So we definitely started with that. And then I think one of the more solid things I started giving him was one of the first solid things was like shredded up chicken. And he loved that. He tore it up. He was stuffing it in his mouth by the handful. Absolutely loved it. And then from then on, I made most of his baby food because it wasn't that hard. I got an Instant Pot, which is like a lifesaver. I love that thing. So I would just steam up a bunch of vegetables and fruits and stuff. And then I had the little baby bullet, which now thinking back, it was like totally a waste of money because you can just use a regular food processor. It's not that serious, but the baby bullet is cute. It has like a little face and stuff on it. But then I would just puree up his food, put it in these little glass containers to keep them in the fridge. And then whatever was like extra, I got like some extra large ice cube trays and I would put them in there and freeze them. So then I could do more batches and I wasn't having to like cook stuff every couple of days. But he has luckily pretty much always been a good eater. 7 to 9 months, he was definitely, he was eating a lot. He had teeth at that point and he wanted everything. And he was pulling up and he would start to pull up and actually like walk around like a corner of a table or something like that. But he didn't try to start taking steps until later on. So he was closer to 1 actually, like on his own without holding on to anything unassisted.
Yeah. I think that is so cool to watch, like the evolution of the movement. Like for Trey, like I said, he was lifting his head early. Tummy time was his jam early. And he would kick his legs a lot, but he did not roll over until he was, let's see, May, June, July, August, September, October. Like almost or right at 7 months. And that was something that really like messed with me because I felt like he should have been rolling over earlier. But once he rolled over, it was like he realized like, oh, there's more to life than laying on my back. Like, oh yeah, I'm about to get out this thing. Cause he never really crawled. Like I remember my mom asking me and I got mad, which like, moms, we get mama bear, but he was like, cause he would crawl at home, but it's like Trey's the kid that's like moonwalking and dancing at home, and then you get somewhere, it's like, go ahead and do that dance, and he's just like,
he's looking at you like you're crazy.
Like, I don't dance. And it's like, really? So he would crawl, like fake crawl at home, like kind of army crawl. And then I would be like, okay, can you crawl for grandma? Can you crawl for whoever? And he wouldn't do it. So my mom was like, I don't believe he can crawl. But he really didn't crawl. He maybe crawled for like 2 months, and then he was trying to get up. Like he was just trying to stand up, and he didn't pull up on anything. He would just like in the middle of the floor, get up, like put his hands on the ground and like pushed himself up and stand. And something that I did not know, but when he was learning how to walk and he was taking his first steps, he never held on to anything. He was just like stepping. And he would take steps and he would fall and he would put his hands out and catch himself. And I thought that was normal. I thought all babies did that. And his dad and his dad's dad, his namesakes, were like, no, most babies will just fall on their face. Like the fact that he has the wherewithal to catch himself is not normal. And I won't say not normal, but it's not normal.
A little advanced.
Yeah. And I was just talking to his dad the other day because Trey's balance is incredible. I have not seen anything like that in babies. Like every single time I think Trey's going to fall, even now he doesn't. Like there have been so many times where he wobbles and he will catch himself where he doesn't fall, or if he does, he will put his hands out so that he doesn't fall and hurt himself. And even now, like he'll run so fast and he'll stop on a dime or he'll hit like a quick turn. So I'm interested to see like what he does when he gets older and if he wants to play sports and like
I was about to say that he might be really good at like just body control and be able to be really good at athletics.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes from that. But I remember he walked the day before his 10-month birthday because my dad was like, I think my dad's all about the predictions. I think he's going to walk at 10 months because you walked at 10 months and your sister walked at whatever month. And he took his first real steps, like walked across the room to his dad the day before his 10-month birthday. And once he started walking, it's a wrap. Like, we had like the little push things for him to pray. He never used them. He played with the toys on the front, but he never really used them to help him learn how to walk. He really just started walking and left, like took off. And he would, at that age, it's interesting because at that age, that 7 to 9 month age, in addition to like the walking and the teething and, sitting up and, eating like more solid food, another thing that I didn't even know existed, which isn't necessarily a milestone, but just kind of like a marker, I think, is the stranger anxiety. Like, I had no idea about that. And
I didn't either.
I feel like, I'm trying to think. He had it, but not really. I was pleasantly surprised because I thought it would be really bad because he spent most of his time with me. Like, we really didn't see people physically. And it was around that time because we caught COVID when he was 7 months. And then after that, things kind of started to open back up here. And it was the holidays. So we were around family physically a lot more. And I was kind of like, I had more like stranger anxiety, and they weren't strangers to me, but I was kind of like eyeing them like, okay, how you dealing with my baby? Like, how is he reacting? And he was totally fine. His stranger anxiety came like later, like
I feel like Elijah's did too a little bit later. Like, I feel like at 7 and 9, he was good for like looking somebody up and down and like like just assessing who you are, like trying to get a feel for your spirit and be like, listen, I don't know if I like you or not.
Right.
But he definitely got more of it as he got older. He doesn't have any of it now. Listen, he be talking to people at the grocery store that he don't know. But at that age, he really, 7 to 9 months, he wasn't really doing it. And it's just so interesting that both of us, we have little boys, and they both developed and hit their milestones at such different times. Because like Elijah, he definitely crawled. He did a lot of, like, he would get up and just go like this and go back
and forth,
all the time. And then once he really started crawling, he was gone. Before he could walk or even tried to walk, he was going up the stairs like it was nothing.
That would have my anxiety. I can't. I still get anxiety with him going up and downstairs, and he thinks he's a pro now.
And we have wood stairs. Our stairs aren't even carpeted, so I would be so nervous. But I would always be right behind him, and he never fell down the stairs, not once.
Wow.
And he did a lot of the pulling up and walking, holding the table, and doing all that. But he didn't actually walk until the week before his first birthday.
I love that. It's like, I love when they walk like right before some type of like marker, because I think it helps. I mean, obviously you never forget that, but I just think that that's always like super cute.
Yeah. So, but like everything else between,
where were you guys?
Yeah, we were home. Yeah, we were home. And this is my mommy brain. I can't remember exactly what was going on. I just remember that he really fully got up and just like walked across the room. And we have been practicing. We definitely used a lot of like the push toys and the walkers and stuff like that. And he would use them if I prompted him to use them, but he was just like Trey. He just wanted to play with the fronts of them. With the exception of one he had that was like a little lion that like had like his nose lit up and stuff like that. He liked that one and he would push that one. But he was more into pulling up onto things and walking along them like that. But he was doing at 7 to 9 months, he was doing a lot of the normal stuff. He definitely had a lot of teeth. I feel like he started teething rather early. I feel even like between 4 and 6 months, he started teething.
How long did it take? Because Trey started, I swear he started teething like at like 3-4 months. Because I was like, why is he drooling so much all of a sudden? Like, bibs would be soaking wet, but the actual teeth did not poke through until he was like 9 months old. I remember because it was like right around Christmas, because I sent everyone like Merry Christmas texts with a picture of him with his My First Christmas bib and his little 2 teeth.
Oh, that's the best.
But I was just like, yo, how long is the teething process? Like, like, how long is this man gonna drool everywhere before the teeth actually cut
It's
through?
different for all of them because Elijah, his started early, like between 3 or 4 months. He would get the drool rash and all that. That's another thing that I freaked
Oh, I
out
hated
about.
that. Yeah.
But I found some stuff that got rid of it immediately. And then his first teeth started coming up, his two bottom front teeth, I would say around 6 months. So he got his a little bit earlier, but it's like everybody's different.
Yeah.
Because my mom told me, for instance, I didn't get like hardly any of my teeth until I was closer to 1.
And it's like once they come in,
Oh
then it's like
yeah,
you look up one day and then just have a whole mouthful of teeth.
yeah.
Like
Now, did he have a
it's
lot of like pain and stuff with his teething, or did he handle it pretty well?
I think he did. He did. He handled it okay, but like right before they were about, I didn't know it, but right before they cut through,
Mm-hmm.
I was really searching for something because it dawned on me that was keeping him awake at night because
Oh yeah.
we've had a few like bouts where the sleep schedule just was not scheduling. Like he would stay up all night or he would wake up throughout the night. At first it was his eczema because he had really bad eczema when he was a baby. Especially around like the 7 to 9 months, because that was when it was wintertime for him, and it
Yeah,
gets
it
worse
was
in the winter.
dry.
And
Mm-hmm.
so his doctor was like, "Do you think he's waking up because of the eczema? Like, is he itching?" And we got that under control, and then it was still happening. And she was like, "It might just be his teeth." And I was like, "Well, what?" Here's another thing about that newborn to 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you're someone who's okay with like giving your baby over the counter like medicine, there's really nothing that they can actually take.
Nothing.
Everything everything is just like organic, which isn't bad, but sometimes like I tried all the organic things and that was my preference at first. Like, of course, you don't want to give your baby, well, maybe you do, whatever. But for me, I
Right.
didn't want to give him, not to pass judgment, everybody's different. But for me, I was okay with the organic stuff if it would have worked. But it didn't, it felt like it just didn't work. So I definitely started keeping like teething rings in the freezer. I would
Mm.
give him like frozen. My favorite thing to do was to put like frozen peaches or frozen strawberries, just frozen fruit in like the little mesh teether thing and let him just
Yeah.
go crazy with that. We would share popsicles. Like I had to do whatever I could just to soothe his teeth. And everyone kept telling me to go get the baby Orajel. Well, surprise, guys, they don't make that anymore. Like the baby
Mm.
Orajel that actually has like the little bit of the medicine in it to do what it's supposed to do.
To
They
numb
don't
it.
sell that. They took it off the shelves. Like they don't sell it anymore.
I didn't
So
even
I
know
had to,
that.
yeah, I asked Ashley, my cousin, she's a pharmacist, and she was like, yeah, they don't make that anymore. And I'm like, what can I give that's the worst when your baby at any age, when your baby is going through something and hurting or in pain or uncomfortable and you can't take it away, especially at that age, it's super frustrating because they can't tell you what's wrong. So you're really
Yep.
guessing at what
Mm-hmm.
you
The
think it is
process
based off
eliminate.
of, yeah, and it's based for me, it was most of that was led by, okay, well, what is he supposed to be experiencing at this time or this
Mm-hmm.
age? Like, what could it be? And then it's kind of
Yep.
like process of elimination. But I would say he had most of his teeth by the time he was like 1.5. He's had most of all of his teeth for a minute now, but those first ones didn't pop until he was like 9, 10 months. And then what came with that too, like I've been talking to Trey since he came out, and I have always talked to him as if he could talk back, like
Yeah.
talk to him the same way I talk to grown people. And I like to think that that's why now he has such a good vocabulary. Like we have full on conversations and have been having them since he was like 1.5. But
Yeah.
I remember the man would not say mama to say like dada was, of course, was his first word.
Mm-hmm.
And he just would not say mama. I don't think he started saying mama with intention behind it, where like he knew, like looking at me and saying mama. He was past 1 when that happened. Like I vaguely remember his first word. I think he was probably like 9 or 10 months, maybe even younger than that, maybe like 8 months when he first said dada. But then after that was just a lot of babbling. And I think you want them to say their first word so bad that you'll like,
Yeah.
"Was that a word?"
Yeah,
Or
you
really
listen for
take it that
anything.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how old was Elijah when he, said his first word?
So, I was trying to remember because, like I said, he's always been a talker, so he was always babbling and stuff, and like you said, a lot of stuff comes out sounding like it's a word, but he's just babbling. So, I wanna say, like, mama, dada was first around I wanna say it's around, like, 8 or 9 months. Um, and then he started it's so funny, and I wish I don't think I have a video of it, but he used to walk around saying, and I don't know what it meant, but he kept on saying, "Heidi, Heidi, Heidi," and he would just keep on saying it, and I'm like, "Who is Heidi? I don't know anybody
Right.
named Heidi." There's nobody named Heidi around here, but he would just keep on saying it, and even now, if I say that to him, he'll start laughing like he remembers it or something, I don't know, but he would just walk around saying that all the time. And then I think it was slowly transitioned into some other things. But it was definitely around like 8 or 9 months. And I know it's terrible, but I really honestly don't remember which he said first, if it was mama or dada.
I feel like it's so hard. Like, to your point, that first year is such a blur. And that's why, like, I am unapologetic about it. I have so many pictures and videos in my phone of Trey.
Me
And I'm
too.
grateful for technology because, like, I have pictures of my first birthday and pictures of big milestones like that, but I have to rely on my parents, their
Yep.
memory to tell
Right.
me about me, at that age. And I'm able to
Yeah.
show, like, to your point, how you were going through old pictures and things with Elijah, like, I'm able to show Trey, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this was you at this age, this was you at that age,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm able to, like, really relive those memories and, like, and the time stamp, the things that your
Yeah,
phone does
because you
automatically,
forget.
'cause you really do forget, like, you're the one executing this. Like, I remember when he turned 1, I, like, pat on my back because I kept this kid alive for a
For a
year.
whole
I kept
year.
myself alive and well enough for a year to, like, care for this kid, and you really just get, birthdays are celebrations of their life, but I think it's also an opportunity, especially that first birthday, to, like, congratulate yourself because this shit is
Yeah.
hard.
It's
So
a
many
major
things.
accomplishment.
Yes, so many things hit you in the face that you're not prepared for, and then in our case, we're dealing with a pandemic and a whole bunch of other craziness happening in the country, and you went back to work, and, like, at so
Mhm.
many things, like we've said so many times, your life doesn't stop just because you popped a kid out. Like, your life continues, and that first year is really about finding the balance between your life, their life, and how those two are now going to, like, meld together. Because, like I said, like, you kind of just realize, like, I better figure this out because it's not going to, like, it's nothing is going to go away. And everyone
No.
tells you, oh, it gets easier, and it does. Certain things are easier, certain things are harder now that
Yeah. I
that
feel
we're
like as soon as
older.
you get into and I think it's constant throughout probably from 0 to 18. Soon as you get comfortable into a routine, they switch it up on you.
Yep.
Or they feel like you figured something out, they switch it up on you.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's the beauty of them growing older. I mean, you wouldn't
Yeah,
want them to, be 3 years old and still acting like a 6-month-old because that's not
true.
what's supposed to happen.
So true, and that first year is so, like, I miss it. I am
I miss it so
loving
much.
this age now. Trey is 2, and I'm loving the fact that he can express himself now, and we can have conversations. He can tell me what
Mhm.
he needs. His new thing now is, "Mama, kiss my boo boo. Mama, kiss my boo boo." And he don't even have no boo boo, but he just wants
Elijah
me
does the
to
same
kiss him,
thing,
like,
and now
"Mama,
he wants a Band-Aid for everything.
oh, yes, when they discover Band-Aids. I blame the daycares because they
Yep.
give them the Band-Aids. "Mom, I want a Band-Aid, mama. Let me kiss your boo-boo, mama. Now you kiss my
Mhm.
boo-boo." I'm like, "Okay, I'm kissing your boo-boo." But it's like, I see, like, my cousin and other people, even you, like, I'm so excited for you that you're about to get to, it's, of course, every baby is different and it won't be the same as Elijah, but with this baby, like, you get to have those snuggles. They smell so good.
Yes,
And,
they
like,
do.
there's nothing like that baby phase. And it goes by so fast. I saw something on Instagram a few months ago that was like, your kids are only little for like 4 or 5 years. It's like once
Yeah.
you get school age, it really, they're never going to be like that again. And so I'm
Right.
really trying to soak in every moment, but it goes by so fast, especially that first year. There's so many milestones that they're expected to hit. But I think, something for expecting moms and even moms that are in it right now, every baby is different. And I think it's important to be aware of the milestones because
Yeah.
you do it's your job as the mom to, or just as a parent, to pay attention to your kids and be able to raise your hand if you really feel and see that something's not right. But
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, it's just us being crazy and your baby is perfectly fine. Your baby is just moving at your baby's pace, and they're
Yeah.
going to continue to move at their pace past
Whether you
the
like
first
it or
year. So
not.
you might as well just fall in line. Like, don't even
Yeah.
think that you can change it because they're going to do what they want to do.
Yeah, and I feel like you should take the milestones more as a kind of guidelines and not
Mhm.
set rules, because just like our situations, both of our children have they definitely hit all their milestones, but they hit them at their own pace during the
Mhm.
whatever time that they needed to hit them. So, and it doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just, we're all different, and that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. And I can say I'm definitely excited to go through this again. And I would say for pregnant mamas or ones that have little babies now, and I know I'm going to do this for number two, is to be more in the moment and
Mm.
not be so caught up on thinking about like the next milestone, or then the next thing, like once they start lifting their head, then you want them to roll over, and then just be happy
Yeah.
in the moment that you're in right now, because just like we said, it's gone within a blink of an eye. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like Elijah shouldn't be a baby anymore. Like he shouldn't be 3 right now. Like he should he should still be
I
a little
know.
baby.
I know.
But, it just goes by so fast, with especially the first 3 months, I think, go by the fastest.
Mhm. Definitely.
But then just the first year in general, it's just goes by fast. And I remember my grandmother telling me, like, once they hit a year, even a little bit before a year, it's like they're not an infant anymore.
Yeah.
And once they're not an infant, it's like you can't get that time back. Even though, being from 1 to 4 or 1 to 3, they're still toddlers and like little kids. They're not infants anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different thing having an infant versus a toddler.
It is. And I think one of the biggest differences is that when they're infants, your children always need you, but they literally need you to survive. Like
Yeah.
they literally need you in order to continue to be alive. And I think once they hit that 1 year mark or around that time, it's when their personalities start to show up. It's when they
Mhm.
start to be able to eat food from a source other than you. Like even if I went on vacation, like even if I'm not breastfeeding, like whoever's watching my baby can give them the same food that they're getting.
Yeah.
There's no distinguisher between what my baby's eating and what everybody else on the planet eat. Well, not, you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
can eat the same things that we eat. They can move around, they can explore on their own time and in their own way. And I think once that happens, the relationship just changes because they
Yeah.
don't depend on you as much. And I think as your kids grow older, that's what a big part of motherhood. You keep going through that same cycle just over and over and over again at different
Mhm.
levels until they're ready to completely leave you and go find out what life is
I
like on
shouldn't
their
even
own,
think
which I
about
can't
it.
even. Girl,
Mm.
I was thinking about when he's gonna start school, like I don't even know what I'm gonna do. And the boy is only 2, like so I still have 3 more years before he's school age, but I'm just like,
Listen, I've already started researching elementary schools and stuff, because like Elijah's going to be in preschool and doing pre-K in just like a hot second.
I
And
know.
then once that's gone, then he's going to be in
Kindergarten.
kindergarten. Like, what? How are you going to be in kindergarten in like
I know.
2
It goes
years? It
by
doesn't make
so
any sense.
fast. I'm not
Not even
prepared.
2 years.
Year and a half. But you
Yes.
have another one coming that can help you kind of soak up the baby vibes. That's one
Yes.
thing that has me like, as time presses on, like,
Right.
do I want to have another one? Just like to your point, because I think, especially for first time moms, you don't really know what's happening until it's already happened.
You
And then it's
don't.
like, shit, I should have, like, to your point, I should have worried less about the milestones or worried less about like whatever we worry about and just like been in the moment, like played with your baby, slept with your baby, like took the pic. That's one thing I did do. And because I read this a lot just on Instagram and Facebook, like, I don't care how I looked. I'm taking a picture. I'm taking the video. Like, because when I look back on this in 20 years and Trey's getting married or whatever it is, I'm not going to care that my hair wasn't done or that my eyebrows look crazy. I'm just going to want that memory of me and my baby. And I did a lot of that, but still, I wish I did more.
I
And
do
so
too.
I think for like, to your point, just be in the moment, enjoy it, because that first year is going to fly by. Your baby, looking at your, like, look at your baby when they were born and look at your baby on their first birthday. And they're two, it's like a totally different human being.
Totally
How much
different.
they grow, how much they learn, how much they change is remarkable. And it's just, it's the best thing. It's crazy. That first year is wild, but it's, I mean, I'm only 2 years in, so I don't have that many years to compare,
Yeah.
but it is, you know, each year is special in its own way, but the first year is just something
I
that's
feel like it's the
really
most
unique.
special.
Yeah,
It's the
it
most
is.
special because you're going from being pregnant to actually having a baby, and then going from a little infant newborn baby to somebody walking around
Having a
talking.
kid, yeah.
It's
And once
you
they start
can't
talking, it's like
it's the walking and talking, it's like that you're done. You have a real kid.
yep, you basically have like another person now that's gonna
Yeah.
be consulting and like telling you what they want and what they
Has their
think,
own
even if you didn't ask them.
opinions.
Yes. Whereas, yeah, it's totally different. But definitely soak up that first year. I love your point. Use the milestones as a guide and not a hard and fast rule. And just enjoy it because it's gonna fly by. And then you will end up in the terrible 2s or 3s.
Or terrific, whatever you want to call them, however
Yeah.
you want to look at it.
Terrific. That's what my mom says. I'm in the terrific 2s, but every single person I've talked to said that 2 is nothing. Just wait for 3.
Oh yeah,
So
I definitely agree with that.
great, cool. I'm gonna need some assistance
Not
next
bad
year,
though,
y'all.
not bad. Fun still. It's still fun.
I'm sure.
Just a lot more opinions and sass, that's all.
I bet. But that's what we'll be talking about next week. So make sure you guys tune in. As always, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram at Shit Your Mama Ain't Tell You, and keep DMing us, keep commenting. I just want to say too, like, to everyone that follows us on Instagram, thank you so much. Our following has grown so much. We've been doing this for less than a year. We're 3 seasons in. And every time that we post content, every time that we release new episodes, our following just keeps growing and growing, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback. So thank you so much. Make sure you keep doing it. Like, share, save, subscribe. And yeah, we're kicking off a great season 3, episode 1. We're wrapped. Yeah.
We will see you next week. Thank you
See
guys
you
for
next
so
week.
much for listening.